This video is a recording of the presentation that I made at the 2019 National Mediation Conference. Hello, I'm Joanne Law, Director of Studies for Mediation Institute and the co-founder of the not-for-profit Interact Support. I'd like to start with acknowledgement of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the traditional custodians of Australia and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'd like to especially acknowledge any Ngunnawal people present here today. Have you ever lived through a natural disaster? One that's disrupted your life for a period of time? I have. I was in Canberra in 2003. A horrible fire was stalking us for what seemed like weeks from the Brindabellas, and then on that horrible day it came down into our town. I was one of the lucky ones. We only had ashes falling in our yard rather than embers. But my son turned to me and said, "Mum, is this the end of the world?" Day had turned to night, a horrible red night, and it was really scary. But I had to stay calm for the kids. That was also the year that my 20-year marriage came to an end. One of the things I really want you to think of as practitioners working in this area is that for our clients, their marriage coming to an end is like a natural disaster. It has a huge impact on their lives. The future that they had been planning is suddenly changed completely. And for many of them, it is a really difficult time. If we look at it clinically, it's not that complicated. There's a decision to separate. There's a need for an agreement about the kids, an agreement about the stuff, that's a technical term, divorce if it's needed, and court orders if they are needed. The problem is the gap between that decision to separate and getting those things in place. Many people actually manage this by themselves. This is a graph from data that was in the Family Law Review. Apparently about 40% of people sort out their property issues by themselves, the stuff, and up to 70% of people sort out parenting by themselves. So that means that the people that are using the family law system are about 60% for property and about 30% for parenting. But of those who do need the system, about 24% of those people who go to family dispute resolution are issued with a Section 60I certificate. That's 5,637 families. Another 4,321 families went to court with exemptions, so they didn't even go to family dispute resolution, generally due to claims of family violence, sometimes urgency. As we all know, family violence is a major issue for us in Australia, as it is in many parts of the world. The statistics in the longitudinal study show that at separation, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men say that they've experienced family violence during or before the separation. And for many of them, separation doesn't resolve that issue, at least not the emotional abuse. 40% of parents said they were still experiencing emotional abuse after 5 years. That's right, 40% said they're experiencing emotional abuse after 5 years. Physical abuse was down to 2%, but a very large number of families are still experiencing emotional abuse. And we know that that is really harmful for children to grow up in that sort of toxic environment. So I'm here to talk about pre-mediation coaching. It's an approach to try and put people onto a different footing right from the start. So what is coaching? According to the dictionary, a coach is a comfortably equipped single-decker bus used for longer journeys. But of course, that's not what I'm talking about. If we look a bit deeper, coaching means to train or instruct a team or a player, to give someone extra teaching, to give someone instruction as to what to do or say in a particular situation, to give someone professional advice about how to attain their goals. This is the sort of coaching that I'm talking about, particularly the instructions about what to do or say in a particular situation and how to attain their goals in a way that doesn't require abuse of someone else. So what's going on? Many of you will be familiar with the Kubler-Ross grief cycle. According to the research, people go through a process of denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance of the change. And as practitioners, we need to provide them with information and communication in those early days, emotional support when they're going through that bargaining stage, and guidance and direction to help them to start building their new life. The problem is this cycle was developed in the context of death and dying. When we're talking about the context of separation and co-parenting, it isn't that simple. My observation is that people going through relationship breakdown, grief cycle, do experience these emotions. However, they are more like on a roller coaster that they can't get off. They're strapped in, and every time it goes on past the station, they keep going around. They also loop back. So there's a lot going on. Also, I've observed that as a society, we have very, very little tolerance of anger. So if someone expresses anger at the time of their separation, they're more than likely to end up with a domestic violence order. The bargaining side of things also often ends up in storytelling and trying to make things look better. I've got an image of this, and you might want to look at the accompanying slides or the video rather than just the audio for this. It is a very volatile time where people find it difficult to resolve their differences, and that can lead into conflict. I'm not sure whether you've seen the conflict escalation volcano, but once again, if you have a look at the slides, it shows that progression and some of the things that can be done to de-escalate and take people back to a situation where they're at peace. A model that can help you to understand what's going on for clients is Vuca. This concept was first developed after the Second World War, during the Cold War period, and it talks about an environment that's volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous. That's often applied to the climate change world that we're living with, and certainly anyone in England who's thinking about Brexit, that's a perfect example. But the family law system is also a Vuca environment. And certainly our clients can be volatile, but so is the situation. If they're in court, things can change dramatically from one hearing to the next. There's a lot of uncertainty. Nobody can actually say for certain what's going to happen, particularly if you get into the court system. It's absolutely complex. There's a diagram that just shows a bit of a flowchart of some of the major processes. There are literally thousands of individual choices to be made, and it's no wonder why people want to go to a lawyer and just hand over the whole problem of sorting out their children and their stuff to the lawyer, because it does seem so complex. But that's not abdicating responsibility. Really isn't the best option for them. One of the services that we've developed with Interact Support is what we call an Interact Consultation for short, or Interact Family Law Options Consultation. And the purpose of that is to help people that are feeling lost and confused in this, in the gap, in the separation process, to develop a plan and action steps to move them through the process more easily. It's a coaching model, once again, of helping people to identify what it is that's important to them, what they want, and then providing expert guidance about the way to achieve that. It's not legal advice, it's legal information and professional support. Mediation Institute's just started training a course called Family Law Options Consultation Training, using one of the units out of the graduate diploma of family dispute resolution, because we've realised that some practitioners actually haven't really had the training to feel confident in providing this coaching support for clients. They are just basically saying, oh, you need to get legal advice, without helping clients to actually know how to get good quality, accurate legal advice. In other words, even though we're highly trained professionals in this family law system, basically just handing the buck. And the final element of a Vuca system is it's ambiguous. It's really hard to tell truth from lies, and many things are open to more than one interpretation. Not having an obvious meaning, people are, because of the ambiguity of the way the Family Law Act is written, people will get conflicting legal advice and act on advice that creates conflict. So these are our clients. They're strapped on this roller coaster of emotion and finding it very difficult managing that. They're in an inherently Vuca system where it's volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous. So as professionals, we have a really important role in helping them to navigate their way through this in a way that's allowing them to sort things out in the best possible way without harming themselves, and particularly without harming their children. The next slide is one that draws on the work of Maslow in his hierarchy of needs. But the model that I'm familiar with is one that's developed, I think, by Anthony Robbins, where the needs are actually put into matching pairs, and it's more around balancing. So underpinning all is the physical needs, the survival. And actually in this situation, some of our clients are really facing survival needs of secure, safe shelter, of even food, enough food sometimes. But the personality needs are seen as being certainty and variety. So too much variety leads to overwhelm, and that's certainly something that many of our clients have to deal with. Once again, the next level of personality needs are love and connection and significance. Too much focus on significance, which is often the case in separation, can lead to real selfishness. The higher level needs, growth and contribution, often they're regarded as spiritual needs, and they are often overlooked or not seen as important for people when they're trying to get their basic needs met. The other concept that goes together with getting needs met, and as mediators we know that talking with clients about their needs and interests is really important, is that there are different ways that we can get our needs met. We can get them in ways that are good for us, good for others, good for the planet. So overall, good things to do. But there are also ways of getting our needs met that are bad for everyone, bad for us, bad for others, and bad for the planet. So we need to try and help our clients to get their needs met in a positive way. Because the consequence of not doing that is the children that are living through this situation. Remember, 5 years after the separation, people are still emotionally abusing each other. The kids are going to be badly affected by that. It leads to antisocial behaviour, poor performance at school, and actually rewiring of kids' brains to live in that conflict zone so that they're more reactive, they're more emotional, and they're more likely to become either perpetrators or victims of violence in their relationships. Another concept or model that we use is above the line or below the line thinking. So if people are thinking below the line, they're acting as if they're a victim. They're looking for reasons for what's happened to them. So there's a lot of blame, making excuses and denial. Being a victim is a very powerless state. People that are living above the line are looking for solutions. They take responsibility, which gives them the ability to respond. They're accountable and they take ownership for their situation, because by doing that, it gives them the power to improve things. And that's a really important part of coaching, is to help people to take responsibility, to live above the line and create the life that they want, rather than endure a life that they don't. I hope that most of you are aware of the basic structure and functions of our brains. It's really important as professionals working with people who may be having trouble with their thinking. Our brains are divided into two basic hemispheres. The right is the emotional, intuitive, the protective side of our brain. It thinks very quickly, makes connections that aren't necessarily logical, but it's designed to protect us. For example, I grew up in the country, so if I see a stick in a certain pattern on the ground, I'm going to jump back because my brain will immediately see a snake and protect me. If I was using the other side of my brain, it's logical, it takes longer, it's usually right, but it's certainly not nearly as quick in making decisions. And when we're working with people in mediation, helping them to make these really, really important decisions about their children and their stuff, we want to help them to get into their left brain, into their reasoning brain, so they can come up with options and possible solutions rather than be emotional and reactive. And there's a bridge between those two parts of the brain. That bridge allows us to work with both, with our intuition and our logic. However, if people are in a very toxic environment, those children growing up with family violence, for example, their brain, that bridge doesn't develop as much. The hormones that are associated with that high level of stress make that bridge smaller. And so they are more likely to get stuck in the right side of their brain, which is the emotional one. Albert Einstein said something like, "No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it." And that's very true. And that's why we need to provide some information, some coaching to people during separation to help them to solve the problems that they're experiencing in this process. So what we're really trying to do is help people to be resilient, to not just survive, not just to cope during the crisis, not just to adapt to the change, not even just to recover back to where they were, but to take this as an opportunity to grow and thrive. So some of the process of what we're trying to do is to actually reduce the level of Vuca that they're experiencing. So rather than these really strong and volatile situations, to help moderate that, rather than the uncertainty, to help them to plan. Reducing the complexity by helping them to work out the best pathway for them. And dealing with the ambiguity by giving them good quality information, making sure that it's clear for them in their situation, and helping them to understand why there can be different interpretations. Some people are resourceful and they manage to get through this process really well. But it's not them that I'm particularly looking at here. It's the stuck ones, the ones that get stuck in this really destructive dynamic. They need skills. They need clarity, family law options consultations, legal advice. They need a new vision for the future to help enhance their resilience, goals that are realistic. They need skills that help them to deal with the challenges of co-parenting. And that's the other form of coaching that I want to talk about with you. Many organisations are running group sessions for people that give them some information and some strategies for co-parenting. And that's fantastic for healthy people. But what if they're not as healthy? What about the high conflict people? People that have extreme behaviours, that don't know how to manage their emotions, that are really inflexible and stuck in their thinking, and who are living below the line, who are just constantly blaming others and not taking responsibility. One of the people, the foremost person working in this area is Bill Eddy from the High Conflict Institute. Bill has had some excellent results with a program he calls New Ways for Families. So Interact Support has contracted or licensed with Bill to bring the New Ways for Families course to Australia. It's a self-paced online course that parents can do, but those that are a bit more stuck, they can do individual coaching, either face-to-face or via the internet, using video meeting technology. Practitioners have the opportunity to complete a New Ways for Families coach training, where you're able to become licensed with the High Conflict Institute by completing a course and being certified here in Australia. What the program teaches is strategies and skills to help clients to moderate their behaviour so that it's moderate, not extreme, to manage their emotions, to be flexible rather than having black and white thinking, and to check on themselves, not just blame others, as well as accurate information about the family law system. The program is fairly new in Australia, so we haven't got any data yet, but this it has been used in a place called Medicine Hat in Alberta, Canada, and it's been getting some really good outcomes. For children, 50% less acting out behaviours, 35% exhibited less symptoms of stress such as headaches, stomach aches, difficulties in sleeping, 33% improved school performance, 38% exhibited more interest in seeing the non-custodial parent. Parent outcomes, 42% improved parenting cooperation, such as accommodating changes in visiting arrangements, to be able to act as a resource for the other parent in raising the child, to improve the day-to-day decision making about children. 50% reported improved cooperation on major decisions about the children, and 68% increased or maintained their involvement with the children. And we know that that is really good for children. And societal outcomes. The social return on investment for the New Ways for Families program in Alberta found that for every $1 invested, the program created an average of $7.4 in social value over the first 3 years. If you'd like to become a New Ways for Families coach or have your organisation making use of the New Ways for Families program, I'll have links for you to be able to find out more information. You can also request a free professional evaluation of the New Ways for Families online course. The way we function as humans is through a cycle of thinking, emotions and actions. I call it the T cycle. So your thoughts lead to your emotions, which lead to your actions, which feed back through to your thoughts, and so we go on. So really what we're talking about in coaching is to help people to change some of their thoughts, helping people to manage this cycle and move towards more empowering and better ways to get their needs met is a really important part of the work that we do. Ultimately, the focus is on helping people to improve their negotiation and conflict management styles so that they move away from that competing win-lose or that avoiding or accommodating approaches that make it impossible to get a resolution in a mediation, towards compromise or ideally collaboration, where they're both able to get what they need to be able to be satisfied with the resolution that they've reached for their children and all their stuff. We'd love to have more people using New Ways for Families with their clients, and also more coaches trained. So if you would like to find out more about the course and request a free professional evaluation of New Ways for Families, please contact me on either my email or phone, and I'll arrange for that.